Hello everyone, welcome to the CTV News on Calabash TV and on the Wave Radio 94.5. I am Melissa Joseph. Well, government sought the approval of Parliament Tuesday to raise $8.4 million EC dollars and $5.092 million to issue fixed rate bonds to Marie and Cecilia Francis and the estate of Oliver Callis Nicholas Francis, respectively, to settle outstanding liabilities for the compulsory acquisition of lands. These lands were acquired by the UWP administration to facilitate the construction of a hotel that never materialized. Prime Minister and Minister for Finance, Dr. Kenny Anthony, told the House that the situation is but just one example of the mismanagement that occurred during the UWP's tenure, with the former tourism minister and now party leader Alan Chasney to blame. The failed business deal, Dr. Anthony noted, was an expensive mistake for the nation.
First, the government had to issue bonds to repurchase the Black Bay lands. And honorable members will recall that the amount then was about 11 to 12 million, I think closer to 12 million, so we were talking quite easily of about $32 million. Then we had to settle the Jamaica government for the lands that was acquired again for Roebuck, but this time on the canal side. And that was a substantial sum of money. Again, bonds were issued. And so today we are trying to complete the process by attempting to settle the Francis family for the lands that were acquired for Roebuck. So, Mr. Speaker, the amount that the government is seeking authorization for is roughly $13 million. And of course, in respect of the Roebuck property at Black Bay, for which we had to reacquire, honorable members' attention is drawn to statutory instrument number 53 of 2015. And they will see that that amount is in the total of $32 million. So when you really look at it, 32 million for Black Bay, then this 13 million here, we have 305, we're talking about 45 million. And then of course, when you add the amount that we had to pay the Jamaica government, the over 18 million, and I'll get the figure in a minute, really you're talking about over $63 million.
Meantime, former Physical Planning Minister Richard Frederick expressed regret at the financial burden that the state now has to endure. The Cashie Central MP, however, echoed the Prime Minister's sentiments that the landowners must be paid. Moreover, doing so would rid the state of additional costs.
And this tool that the government has, by virtue of the Constitution, sometimes is abused. That tool of compulsory acquisition is abused. And I say so, Mr. Speaker, without fear or favor. I am one, Mr. Speaker, who believes that if it is expedient to acquire lands in the interest of the country, then so be it. But I would always opt for private treaty before I opt for compulsory acquisition. Because private treaty ensures you have the money to pay for it. Compulsory acquisition, Mr. Speaker, is a deferred debt. And look at now, look at the situation now. Look at the situation now. We have to find monies to compensate those persons whose lands were acquired.
And the former UWP member then went on to disassociate himself from the costly decision, giving a guarded insight into what transpired during that period.
I felt it was unfair. I felt there were teachers, nurses, persons in relatively low-paying jobs whose only asset was a little piece of land. And here comes an investor under the guise of having money. My first proposal was to match the value of the land with money. Mr. Speaker, you know what? When my ministry failed to act, I was summoned to cabinet at 6:30 in the morning to comply. And I was drilled. I was drilled like a recruit, having just joined the army. The sergeant of 40 years experience was teaching me how to get it done. I was drilled, Mr. Speaker. And not only was I summoned, Mr. Speaker, I was summoned with all my technocrats. At one point I had to say that I am a politician and I understand coming here at 6:30, but I cannot do that to my technocrats. And so there was a slight elongation in the time period. We moved from 6:30 to 7 o'clock in the morning, Mr. Speaker, when I refused blatantly because I felt it was not in the interest of my country to do so, Mr. Speaker. And it is coming to pass. It is coming to pass, Mr. Speaker. It is coming to pass. So sometimes, and that is the sad thing, Mr. Speaker, politics divides us, and when things are wrong, because we are part of a group, we need to agree to it, whether it's right or wrong.
Castries Central MP Richard Frederick there. Now, during his presentation in the House of Assembly, Guy Joseph sought to justify the decision that was taken by the then Cabinet of Ministers, arguing that in the end, the land will belong to the people of St. Lucia.
Other lands have been acquired. We have not seen a block in the ground. We have not seen concrete in the ground either. I'm not saying it will not happen. Let's look at the old senior citizens' home in Soufrière. Wasn't the land acquired? Wasn't part of the land sold? Have we seen any development? No, Mr. Speaker. But will there be development? I believe even if it doesn't happen now, there will be a development at some point in time. You see, the difference with what we... The old senior citizens home, Magwetut. Have any work started? Is there concrete on the ground? Mr. Speaker. Yes. Mr. Speaker, the point I am making is when properties, and we are not dealing with this property in isolation. If you ask me, would that money be better spent today doing something different? It may be. Had the circumstances not been what it is, but the reality is we are not paying for something that we don't have.
Meantime, the Castries South East MP found himself once again at the caution of the Speaker of the House as he contributed to the debate on the resolution to guarantee the financing of the South Roads Rehabilitation Project, that's bounced to Lahore, and the Labri Village Main Road Rehabilitation Project. Mr. Joseph accused the government of withholding information on the bidding process that led to the selection of CIE Construction as the contracted firm for that project.
Why are you building two bridges and you put in them separate places, one project? You're building two sets of roads now. You're doing Labri Village roads, you're doing Banslaho roads. You put it in one project. I can understand, Mr. Speaker, you give it to one contractor. I can understand that. But I'm not understanding the detailed components of it. How did they arrive at the price that the roads were going to cost? If the conditions in one area is different from the conditions in the other area. So where's the information for Parliament? You are asking Parliament, and I expect it to pass. I'm the only one standing here. So the eyes will always have it, Mr. Speaker. But the people of St. Lucia must know. They must know for themselves what is going on here. Why is it being handled this way, Mr. Speaker?
The former communications minister then made a reference to the manner in which information about roadworks contracts awarded to his family members was treated in the House previously. and in doing so attempted to raise question about the relation between the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Infrastructure and the Managing Director of CIE Construction. At that point, he ran a roadblock in Speaker Peter Foster.
I'm not doing it. I'm doing it. I'm doing it. It's in the document, and I've committed to making it a document of the House, Mr. Speaker. Now, Mr. Speaker, I have to ask this question here today. What is the relationship between the contractor
Honourable Member,
and the Permanent
what is the
Secretary?
relevance of that question? What is the relevance of that question?
I'm answering you, Mr. Speaker.
Let's hear it.
It's not the issue of who is the Permanent Secretary. It is the issue of who signs.
What is the relevance of your suggestion?
Mr.
What
Speaker,
are you saying?
I'm coming to this.
Please say it quickly.
Okay. Mr. Speaker, in the past, several accusations were leveled.
Honourable Member, we're not going into the past now. You have embarked on a course of conduct here. You need to tell me what the relevance is.
Mr. Speaker, you are in charge of this House. You will allow me to make my presentation, or you will not allow me to make my presentation. I am making reference to the signatories on behalf of the government of St. Lucia and the contractor.
What are you saying? What is
And
your
the point I am making is, why is this contract? Why I have questions about this contract?
Have you investigated the relationship?
I don't know the relationship, Mr.
So why are you going there?
Mr. Speaker,
Honourable Member, I will not have you try and impute any improper motives to anybody outside of this House or inside without proper evidence or proper foundation.
Now, the Infrastructure Minister, Philip J. Pierre, sought to clear the air on the bidding process.
The three bidders were Surrey Paving and Aggregate, that is a Jamaican firm, international firm from Jamaica, and there were two local firms, Construction and Industrial Equipment Limited, a local firm, and Master Builders Company Limited. These bidders, Mr. Speaker, were evaluated based on a combined technical and financial score. The technical score accounted for 60% and the financial score accounted for 40%. Now these documents, Mr. Speaker, were opened separately. That means that the technical component was evaluated first and then the financial component evaluated secondly. And what is called a weighted method was used to determine who was the lowest bidder.
Minister Pierre rubbished the theory that the ministry has concealed aspects of the process pertaining to the selection.
Now, Mr. Speaker, I want to make the point on the technical score, because you may have heard before as if when the contract was written up, there were no designs in the original bid, which is not true. The technical score included the designs for the road. You understand? So to give the impression that the contract was signed without any designs is not true.
Blatantly false.
It's very false. It was a technical score because the contractor, he had to show the bidders how he intended to pursue the road. So he had to have a technical, and that's what it was. The technical components showed the designs or the preliminary designs for the road. So to come to this honorable house and tell people that we signed a contract without any designs is false, Mr. Speaker, and dangerous. Because that is what the technical analysis of the bid involved. And here are the results of a technical analysis. Surrey Paving and Aggregate, 86.5%. Construction and Equipment, Industrial Equipment Limited, 85%, and Master Builders, another local firm, 73%.
TIE was awarded a $31.1 million contract to undertake that project. Stay with the CTV News when we come back. Celebration at the PI Combined School.